Okay, welcome to Community Development's Learning Lab. Our presentation today is on public records, how to find records in the Property Information Center, and how to submit a public records request. This is presented by our expert staff member, Desiree Demonier. Please put your phones on silent, save your questions at the end where we'll have a Q&A session. CVTV is recording this Learning Lab, and it will be available on CVTV and on our website. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Desiree Demonier, and I work for Clark County Community Development, and a large part of my job is related to public records. Today, I'm going to show you how to research online to find information and records for parcels in unincorporated Clark County, and I'm also going to show you how to submit a public records request and the process your request will go through. So let's visit our Property Research and Records page. We'll start at clark.wa.gov, and then from the Departments menu, we'll select Community Development, and then we'll select Property Research and Records. So the top part of the page shows you different ways to get to the Property Information Center and to Maps Online. The Property Information Center is information-based, while Maps Online is map-based. Both of those applications link to each other, and they are provided and supported by the county's GIS department. These applications also interface with our permitting systems, LMS and Tidemark, and with our digital imaging system OnBase. So in addition to showing you how to access those two applications, the bottom part of the page has instructions on how to find information and records, which is what I'm going to go over today. So let's get started on our research. So I'm going to click on another way to show you how to get to these applications. Click on the Departments menu, and you can click on Geographic Information Services here. And you can also use the Maps and Records menu and click on the Property Information Center here, or go to Maps Online here at the Property and Land Records. So we're going to start with Maps Online. Oh, this is always fun. Let's see, bridges. Does it look like I got them all? There we go. All right, and then we'll accept here. So the first thing I need to do is find my parcel. So I'm going to click on Find Parcel here, and you can enter a street address or a house number or your parcel or tax account number. So I'm entering a house number and click Find, and then I'm going to pick the one that I want to see in my list. On this view, you can see a link to the Property Information Center, which we will look at in a few minutes, and then there's a link to a property fact sheet. So the property fact sheet shows many features about the parcel, and this is what we would provide to you if you asked us for a zoning certification. On this page, there's other information about the parcel and your map view. So right now, we're going to look on the Layers tab to look at different layers, and in this case, the information icon for tax lot is selected. But perhaps I'm interested in seeing the subdivision that my property is in. So I'm scrolling out a little bit to get a better view, and then I'm going to click on the Subdivisions layer to turn that layer on, and the information icon to get information about the subdivision. Then I'll click on my parcel, and it'll show us the subdivisions that the property is in. So in this case, there's Mariah's Place is the more recent one, and that I know was recorded in 1996, and then the older one is Fairview Homestead, which was recorded in 1909. So perhaps I'm interested in seeing some aerial photographs of the area. You'll expand the imagery section right here. And I'm going to take a look at the oldest aerials that we have, which is 1955. So I'm going to turn that layer on, and it shows that this area was pretty much farmland back in that time. Since I know that Mariah's Place was recorded in 1996, I'm interested in looking at the next available aerial, which is 1998. I'll turn this one off and turn that one on. And you can see that by 1998, that whole area was built out. So next I want to look at a few different mapping groups. So we'll look at the map sites that are available to us, and we can see there are several different types of map groups that are available. Actually, I'm going to go back for a second and turn off that imagery. We're going a little slow today. I guess I'm a little stuck. Okay, let's go into map sites. So perhaps I want to see if there's any code enforcement cases in the area or in my neighborhood. I'm going to select the development review layer, and I'm going to expand the permitting group, and then I'm going to turn on the active code enforcement cases layer. And then I'm going to turn on the information icon here. The GS is going a little slow today, so we'll have to let it catch up for a second. So the code enforcement case that is shown on the parcel with this little red diamond, and it gives you the case number here. So when I click on that little red diamond, it gives me some information about that case. One is the status that it's under investigation, and the case description is that it's a building code violation. So next I'm interested in the elevation for my property. And I would be interested in that because if I'm going to submit a building permit application, I'm going to need to show my elevations on my plot plan. So I'm going to expand the, I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to expand the environmental layer, and then I'm going to expand the slopes and geologic hazards group. Then I'm going to expand the contour lines. So I'm interested in looking at 2-foot contours, so I'll use a checkbox and turn on the 2-foot contours. I'm also interested in seeing how my house sits on my property, so I'm going to turn on building footprints. So when I click the information icon for the 2-foot contour lines, I can click on this line right here, and it's going to show me that the elevation that the flat part of my property is a 290-foot elevation. So if I was going to put an addition onto my house and needed to know the elevations for my plot plan, that's how I would find that out. Okay, so now I'm interested in seeing what other permits might be in my area. So I'm going to turn off the contours, and I know that there's a new subdivision that's right around the corner from me, and I'm interested in seeing what permits have been applied for so far. So I'm going to go back to map sites, and I'm going to look at the permits and site plans layer. So I'll turn that on, and I'm going to expand this permits building layer here. So I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to use the information icon here. And then because there's a bunch of different symbols on the map now, I'm going to expand this legend here. And then you can see all the different types of permits. So when I click on a symbol, it gives me information about the permits for that parcel. And so here are those permits here. If you're interested in land use cases, you can do the same thing using this permits development layer. So when you expand that, it gives you several different case types, and then you can do the same things with looking at the legend and turning those layers on. So as you can see from just the few layers that we've looked at, there's a lot of things that you can discover about your parcels on Maps Online. For an in-depth look at the wetland and habitat layers, watch our Learning Lab episode from April, this past April, and then you can learn about those layers. So now I'm going to go back to the Property Information Center and show you what you can see there. So we'll go back to our Property Research and Records page, and I'm just going to use the link for the Property Information Center there. And the same search criteria applies here, so I can just enter a house number or a street address or my tax account number or parcel number here. Again, it gives me a list of addresses, and I'm going to pick the one I'm interested in, and that opens the Property Information Center. So there's several tabs, and we're going to look at a few of them. The top of the page links to Maps Online. As a reminder, Maps Online and the Property Information Center are linked together, as well as being linked to our permitting systems and our digital imaging system. You can also get a property fact sheet here as well. So the first tab is the Account tab, and important to note is the jurisdiction here. So if your property was in one of the cities, then the name of the city would be here. And that's important to know because if you're looking for records, or you're going to submit a records request, you need to submit your records request to the correct jurisdiction. Another thing people look for is the zoning for their property. So in this case, it's single-family residential R16. Now, if I wanted to know what is permitted in my zone or what my setbacks are, I would use this code link right here, which opens our Title 40 Unified Development Code, and the single-family residential district R16 is here in 4220. So I would click on that link. Now that opens our Clark County Code. In order to read the code, you can click on Compile Chapter, and then all of the information about your code is here, including, scroll down a little bit and you'll see the setbacks. In the middle column, for parcels that are in a recorded survey or subdivision, you would see that information here in the middle column. So we were looking earlier at Mariah's Place, so I can open that up and a little box opens up with some more information. If you click on this link for the book and page, it will open the subdivision browser, which provides more information about the subdivision. The auditor's number here links to the auditor search page. This parent parcel number links to a new Property Information Center page, so you can find more information about that. The recorded plat is shown with these two images. They're different formats of the same image. So if you click on that, you can get a copy of the recorded plat. And then this last link here shows the subdivision on Maps Online. So you go back to, we already saw that view earlier today for this property. On the Building tab, usually you'll see a photograph of the property and some information about the building. And in this case, something to note is the year built. So this one was built in 1930. So Clark County did not start requiring building permits until 1970, and the county did not start issuing certificates of occupancy until 1973. So buildings that are older than these years will not have an original permit or original certificate of occupancy. On the auditor's documents, you can get unofficial copies of different recorded documents here. But there could be other recorded documents, and in order to look for those, you would go to the auditor's office. So again, the departments tab, click on auditor, expand the recording, and go to document search. And that opens their search page to find all kinds of recorded documents. On the permits tab, you'll see permits in our Tidemark system and in our LMS system. In this column, you'll see wherever there's a symbol, that's where a document has been imported or scanned into our digital imaging system, which links to the Property Information Center. We can also see the case type, the issue date, and what the status of the permit is. So in this case, the only permit that's available online is this right-of-way permit. When you click on this little symbol here, it opens a list of documents. There's only one document here, so we'll take a look at that. And then it opens up and you can see the actual permit. So as we scan our documents or import them from our permitting systems into OnBase, then they become available on that Permits tab. On the Miscellaneous Documents tab, which you'll see that same document again, but this tab is also used by Public Health and Public Works for documents that they have made available. So now I want to see what's available at my neighborhood Safeway store. So I'm going to go back to Maps Online. I'm going to scroll out a little bit and scoot this over to where my Safeway is. And I'm going to click on that parcel. And it opens up this information again that we saw earlier for the other parcel. I want to go to the Property Information Center, and then I'm going to click on the Permits tab. And here we can see that we have lots of different types of permits and land use cases for this property. Many of the records have been scanned and are available to you online. So most permits records that are prior to the year 2000 are still on microfilm, and many of our records are still in paper format. So we're working to get those older permits and records scanned into OnBase to make them available to you. And in 2022, we started using ePlan Review, making it easier to migrate our building permit records into OnBase. So now let's jump to LMS, our permitting system. And you can get to that from our page using the CC LMS online permitting. So LMS is another place to search for information, and we started using LMS in 2016, and you can see basic information about a permit there. So we'll hit this login button, and then now you're in LMS, and we'll scroll down to the bottom of that page and click on this Search LMS link. So the search criteria that I'm going to use is to search by a permit number, but there's many different ways that you can conduct searches here. I'm going to enter a new home construction permit number and search for that. several different choices come up. And so you just click on the one that you're interested in seeing more information about. And you can see there's a ton of permit information here that you can go through and find out about your permits. So a side note, we receive many requests for residential building plans. And in most cases, we do not have them. Per the Washington State Archives retention schedules, we only retain residential plans for 90 days after the certificate of occupancy has been issued. In rare cases, we may have that plan. So it is okay to request them, but don't get your hopes up because we probably won't have it. My suggestion is if you have a newly built house, request the floor plans from your builder or request them from us within the first 90 days after the certificate of occupancy was issued. And then when you sell the house, leave the floor plans with the house. So when you can't find your records online, you need to submit a records request. So let's take a look at that. So you would use this link on our Property Research and Records page to get to our Public Records request page. So we've already checked the jurisdiction on the parcels that we were looking at, but this is another reminder for you to do that. You can also access a public reference guide if you're not sure which department your records are in. That guide has different commonly requested records, and it shows you which direction to go for that. So the types of records that we cover in community development are animal protection and control for Clark County and the City of Vancouver, building permits, code enforcement records, development engineering, land use, wetland to habitat, and fire marshal records. So in the center of this page is a link where you would go to submit your public records request. So this is where you would end up, and then you would just click on the submit a public records request button here. If you're a first-time user, you would need to create an account, but otherwise you would just use your login and email address and your password. For your account details, it's not required to provide your phone number and your address, but we appreciate it when you do. Occasionally, customers will enter an invalid email address accidentally, and if we have your phone number or your address, then we can still contact you. So after you create your account, it will advance you to your request submittal page, while a welcome email like this one will be sent to you. On the submittal page, you'll select Community Development as the department, and in the Types of Records drop-down, you will see that there are several choices. For this presentation, I selected building permits because I wanted to request a certificate of occupancy for a tenant improvement in that Safeway complex that we were looking at a few minutes ago. This will open up additional fields for you to fill out and provide as much information as you have, and there's a space for a clear description of the records that you want. So this is information I filled out. I found in the Property Information Center for that Safeway parcel. It's important to be as specific as possible because if you're vague, then we'll have to reach out to you for a clarification, and that just adds time to us processing your records request. Also, make sure you know what you're asking for, or you know what records you want, because if you ask us for the wrong thing, that's what we're going to give you. You can always ask us, feel free to ask us for guidance, to either guide you in the right direction or to help you narrow your request to what you really need. So once you've submitted your records request, you will receive a confirmation email from us like this one. It informs you that we have 5 business days to either provide the records, provide a link to the records, provide an estimate of when we anticipate completing your request, or denying your request. Public records requests, also known as public disclosure requests, are governed by the Washington State Public Records Act at RCW 4256. This act provides the rules that we follow in processing your request, including timelines, best practices, and what is exempt from disclosure. Our common exemptions are personal information like driver's license numbers and bank account information, but other common exemptions are archaeological site information and attorney-client privileged communication between our staff and our legal advisors in the prosecuting attorney's office. When your request is received and added to our GovQA queue, it is assigned to a staff person within the program that would house those records. When the appropriate staff person receives your request, they will do some preliminary research and determine how long it will take to complete it. You will receive an email like this one with a time estimate. So on occasion, we are able to fulfill your request right away, but most of the time you'll be added to our queue. Processing records request is only a portion of what each records staff does for their job. So we have to balance this work with our other duties and workload. Generally, it can be 2 to 3 weeks before we are able to complete your request. We usually have 25 requests in our queue at any given time, but we have had as many as 70. So far this year, we've handled 715 requests. We had 727 in 2023 and 696 in 2022. Requests have become much more complex over the years, requiring us to search in multiple locations for records. We must perform a due diligence search, and each person that processes records requests is an expert in the records for their program. Records may be on our servers, in our permitting systems, in our software applications, on microfilm, on microfiche, in paper files, in our digital imaging system, on historic maps, in our email archives, on our county-issued cell phones and laptops, in our index card file, on external drives and thumb drives. Often, we coordinate with our department staff or staff from other departments while we're performing our searches. You can check the status of your request and email us through the portal. Here you can see that the status is assigned, and you would just scroll down the page in order to send us an email message. Emailing us from your request ensures that your email goes directly to the person that is handling your request. If you use the ComDev general email address or another email address, your email is delayed while staff investigates who is handling your request. So when we have located the records for your request, we review them for anything that is exempt from disclosure, and we perform redactions. When we do that, we will supply you with a redaction log so that you know what type of information was redacted and why. Then we make the records available to you in the Public Records portal. And as you can see now, the status is full release, and there's a link to the file where you can download or view it. We will also send you a closure email. This email lets you know the number of pages that we're providing to you, the search criteria we used, and the places that we searched for your records. Our goal is to make as many of our records readily available to you online as quickly as we can. Scanning and importing permits into our digital imaging system is a large effort that staff is diligently working on. It saves you time when you can find the records you need online, through the Property Information Center. Thank you for joining me today, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes.
I know you can, and
Oh.
instead of doing a public request, but traffic studies, I think you can find that on the GIS page too, am I correct?
You know, I don't really know that. If the traffic study is part of a land use case or required through development engineering, and it's been scanned and imported into the digital imaging system, then you would see it with the case files, yes.
Okay, in the case files you can.
But,
I've seen it there before, but I couldn't find it again, so.
so it wouldn't be for all cases, it's just whatever we have had the opportunity to digitize or scan or import in.
I have a question.
Yes.
What do I do if I find incorrect information on the Property Information Center concerning my property?
Well, so it would depend on what type of information is incorrect. So if it's related to anything that's related to community development, you would definitely contact us and we would take a look and do some research on that and get back to you with whatever we find. If it's assessment information, then you would contact the assessor's office. So it just really depends on what type of information that you are finding that is not correct. So just send us an email and we'll guide you.
Does a person have to submit online to make a records request, or can they email or just call you in or like walk in?
Can
and
you
just talk?
can you ask that question again in a microphone?
Oh, yep. No, you're good.
Thank you so much.
When, excuse me. Does a person have to submit an online request to get records, or can they email or call or just kind of walk into our office and just ask for records? How does that work?
A public records request can be made in any form or fashion. So we prefer using the public records portal because that helps us with tracking and with metrics that we have to submit to the state legislature. So even if you submit a records request in another way, it'll still end up in our GovQA public records portal. But you can call it in, you can email it in, you can submit it on a sticky note, you can use one of our forms, you can send it in an email or a text message. I mean, we have to accept it in any format that you choose to submit it. But as I said, it will end up in our portal. Yes.
So I know that there's a whole bunch of different departments that do kind of the same thing. I mean, to me, it's the same thing. Sorry. In the county. So community development just deals with building permits pretty much in the building aspect, because I know we have the planning department, we have so many different departments here in the county. What does the community plan department do? I mean, what do you do? Exactly. What are you in charge of?
So community development does issue building permits. We do development permits, land use cases, wetland habitat. We also have development engineering. We have our fire marshal's office, code enforcement, and animal protection and control. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, we do coordinate with other departments like Public Works and Public Health and those departments when it comes to working through building permits and land use and all of that stuff. So there is coordination with other departments, but those are our core
Well,
programs.
sometimes for the public, sometimes you don't know what department you're looking for in certain things, so it's just nice to have clarification
Sure.
sometimes.
Thank you. Yes.
I was curious if you know the history of why building plans are not kept on file.
I do not know that. I believe that the Washington State Archives has determined that residential plans are not of archival quality. Can you imagine how many plans we would keep if we kept them all? I mean, I just think it's just such a huge amount.
Well, it just seems like you have archived quite a bit of detailed information about many things, and much of it is useful. Maybe not to me as a homeowner, but a building plan would be.
Yeah.
It just seemed odd not to keep that.
Yeah.
Nobody has it anywhere. Has that always been the case?
That's true. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I have one more question.
Okay.
Say my property used to be in the jurisdiction of Clark County, but it now is under Vancouver's jurisdiction. So how can I tell which entity issued my building permits or other permits?
So when we were in the Property Information Center and we were in the Permits tab, one of the columns is the issuing agency for the permit. So it will show which agency, either Clark County or Vancouver, issued the permit.
All right, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session. Our next session is going to be presented by our weatherization staff, and the topic is Safe, Warm, and Efficient Weatherization Explained. This is scheduled for the third Thursday of next month, which is January 16th, and it'll be held at 11 a.m., and we really hope to see you there, and thank you so much for coming today.